Alright, so Kingdannz sporting that nice egg avatar here.
Oh, and he's running it, the blue-green
Oh,
Apex.
Now
Apex
once,
is a really strong deck, yeah.
so it's a real strong deck, but is that the deck that you want to be running against a yellow deck like this? It looks like a yellow rush.
No, Yellow Rush is normally very strong against it, so this is very concerning. But then again, the Apex deck has the chance of getting a very strong start if you can get a Sturdy Shell and a Gabriel Enchantment. But I was a bit surprised to see he threw away the hand that he had, because he did have a Sturdy Shell.
Yeah, it would have been a nice start. He may have been looking for like a Living Willow even to start.
So it looks like there's actually an Earthcraft in his hand. Is this the sort of thing that we've been seeing a lot on ladder right now, or is this something entirely new?
I think he's been including it just in the green-blue Apex list, but he's actually running fairies, so I don't know. Maybe this is a new tech to fairies that I haven't quite seen yet.
Yeah, we can see he's kind of starting out with this diamond formation of his lands. It's something that we've seen Kingdannz do a lot, but it's really good at countering this sort of rush because this is the only land they end up getting in aggressive, and he's able to block off pretty much everything else.
Yeah, he's going to be able to keep that aggression just to one side, so if he can stabilize onto it, he's going to be able to limit where Sepfire is going to be able to get lands in.
Then can definitely say for sure this Steamforged Enforcer is going to make that very difficult, and he's not even drawing the cards he needs to be able to get these buffs on his fairies either.
Yeah, this is really unfortunate drawing for Kingdannz. I would assume you kill a fairy here, because it's probably going to block 6 damage at a later point anyway. But no, he's just going straight
Wow.
face.
So he just attacked face and didn't play a Column's Prayer, is that right?
He doesn't have 2 deserts.
Oh, that would be my mistake. Alright. Makes a lot of sense here. I'm glad we have you to set me straight,
Yeah.
you know.
He does get the really nice desert placement just to the side of the well there, so any of his haste creatures are going to pick up that fairy on their way in to attack the orb. It's a very strong placement for a rush deck like this.
And this is kind of unlucky for Danz. He's gotten pretty far without drawing an event. I wonder if he'll drop the Willow and feed to try and draw another card.
I think there's a good chance we'll probably drop the Gem Silk even before doing that, just so when the buff does come down, it's going to be, you know, massive.
Yeah, if he does draw an event here, he'll be able to get a lot of value out of these fairies.
But
Yeah,
actually, okay.
him
Great.
dropping the fairy means he can't feed though, so it's another turn that he's going to have to try and stall.
Well, he can't feed this turn, but the Living Willow is going to be able to survive this hit, so he will have an expendable creature on board at least, even if it won't actually be netting him that much Fairia.
I think it was a mistake to hit first, considering that he was running chokings, because we saw that in the mulligan. Maybe he should have hit first and prayed in trying to find a choking sand. But it looks like he doesn't draw it anyway.
It looks like a Soul Drain's going to come down, probably on the Blue Fairy. Yeah, there it is. Wow, so an absolutely massive amount of pressure coming out from Sepfire here.
Well, finally, the event hits and pops the fairies up, but yeah, he does lose the value from the Gem Silk.
Goes ahead and plays that Wisdom, and this Rune's Command is probably going to go a long way towards, you know, hopefully stabilizing this for him. It'll make it so his Living Willow can trade into the 2-1, and one of these fairies will be able to trade into the Steamforge. But he's still going to be taking a lot of damage right here.
Yeah, I was wondering if he might instead just shifting type the 2/5 that's on his prairie to the northeast, and then fly 2 down to kill the 2/1, but it looks like he opted to kill the Steamforge instead, which is probably a better line.
Okay, and we do see that with the way these attacks came in, even this Vampire won't be able to get too much value out of this. It'll still leave 2 of the fairies alive and only take out the Living Willow. Actually, he doesn't even have the Fairia for that at this point. What do you think the play is here, Scorch? Do you think we will see the Freedom Fighter coming down?
Well, Freedom Fighter still doesn't have a great spot. Maybe it hits the Living Willow, and then he moves the Crusader in, being really greedy to hit the orb. It just doesn't feel right now like he has a great... Oh, actually, the fairies have taunt. Sorry, my mistake. So you'd have to kill them anyway.
Alright, the play that I'm seeing right now is probably Freedom Fighter on the desert to attack the fairy and then just run the Crusader into the Living Willow. And it does seem like that's what's going to come down. So this leaves him with a pretty big Crusader, still collecting Fairia for the next turn. And this fairy can't trade into it either.
Sepfire also drew a Last Nightmare there, so he's going to have that available if something big does come down for Kingdannz.
Alright, we can see the Kingdannz is trying to basically just draw anything he can at this point, but this Gabriel enchantment is definitely not what he was looking for. It'll be able to reduce the power on the Freedom Fighter properly and be able to cycle through his deck a little bit more, but I think he's looking for something a little bit more high impact than that right now.
Yeah, what we might see is just a light come down and the fairy to collect and maybe Apex on the 6/5. It's not that high of a power play, but it looks like it's his best option.
And that is what's going to come down here. He actually has the option of attacking into the Freedom Fighter as well, just to kind of remove all that power off the board. But no, he will just go ahead and collect it, like you said.
Well, I think you you hit face and you Callums and then you last nightmare the 9/8.
Yeah, that
I
seems like a
don't see
pretty
any
strong play
better
here.
play.
It's going to be really hard for Kingdannz to come back from this. Just losing that 9/8 after he sunk so much Fairy into it is a massive swing. This 6/5 is going to be threatening lethal, even if this Fairy does trade into the Freedom Fighter next turn.
Yeah, actually, this looks a bit better hitting face with the Celis and just walking out of the way with the Freedom Fighter.
Very well played by Sepfire. Very accurate play from him.
Yep. He also has the Wind Soldier, so he sets up that desert at the top, so it has the charge to get there if he needs to next turn.
So this Living Willow is going to be growing massively with that Gabriel enchantment. So this could actually be what he needs at this point. On board, Sepfire's not able to deal with the 7/7. So it looks like he's going to have to trade off his board and play a card from hand in order to deal with the 7/7. Then Kingdannz is going to have the initiative, which will probably let him bring down this Fairy. If the Fairy gets a buff, he'll be in a pretty good position at that point.
Yeah, I think we're likely to see him draw a card though, because at worst you just soul drain the 7/7 and trade the Celis in, and then you hit face with the follower.
Follower, yeah.
So maybe draw a card first just to see if you can get more options.
What sort of options are you looking to draw into for the yellow deck right now? I feel like the hand is pretty diverse, and I'd almost be tempted to take Fabria instead. Alright.
Decides to go with the Wind Soldier instead. Interesting. I does still get the Soul Drain down.
Okay, so he's setting up for lethal whenever this Freedom Fighter can come down, bring his opponent to 3 HP. If Kingdannz had something like a Runes Command, he would be very happy right now, but unfortunately he doesn't.
I'm a bit surprised by that because it seems likely that you're going to be running into taunts, so I'm curious how he's going to manage to deal with what Kingdannz puts on board.
Was that a mistake here, playing that Kalim's follower and moving it forward? Did he not realize the Fairy had taunt?
It denies the opponent from gaining Faria, though. I think that's what he was looking to do.
Well, and it also, now Kingdannz can't move the Fairy onto that desert to block that haste path.
Okay.
Even if he kills the follower here, he's still sitting in a spot where that desert will be open.
I'm not entirely sure I like that expenditure, though, because this Fairy does have taunt, so even if, he doesn't block the haste path or anything like that, he's still not going to be able to attack face the following turn. The Flower Soak Fairy going to come down again, and he's going to be able to draw into the second event, so this is starting to look a lot better for Kingdannz really quickly.
Well, you say that, but here comes down to 10/10.
Yeah, 10/10 is going to be a little bit difficult for this deck to deal with, admittedly. He does have the double Gabriel enchantment in hand. He'll be able to trade into it if he needs to, but that will kind of leave him dead to this Freedom Fighter, though.
Yeah, I think we're likely to see the Celis and the Death Wish will come down this turn. Or maybe not. I'm curious what he's planning, if he's just thinking of Vampire.
It looks like he really wants to play that, but I think I do like the Zealous Crusader plan better. You don't really need a creature that's any bigger than 10/10 right now. There's no point in waiting for it to get bigger, especially when your opponent's at 3 HP already. But he is going to play the Vampire. Wow. So Scorch, what do you think of that play?
The one nice thing that the Vampire does do is it takes away the Fairy ability to get the Gabriel enchantment right now. They're both 2/3s, so they can't get buffed up to 5/5 like the counterplay to the Crusader was going to be. So it's still going to get a little bit more value that way.
Yeah, so he is able to, like you said, get rid of these enchantments. It's not really as much of a threat as it was. But I'm not sure that's worth, kind of delaying how much power he was putting on the board. Um, and we do see Kingdannz draw an Aurora's creation here. So do you think we're going to see another creation on a fairy, or is he looking to wait for a predator at this point?
Oh, I think
Probably
he's
gonna wait
far
for
off.
the.
Yeah,
I
far
probably
off
would
from
wait for
playing.
the Apex would be the best. I think that would probably be, unless something comes down to clear these fairy or one of the fairies, and he needs to get that taunt again, then he may just be able to wait. But
Absolutely. And I think this turn we will almost certainly see the Death Wish School come down, probably by the Fairy well would be my guess. I don't really think there's a reason to put it next to Face. Cappuccino, what do you think?
I'm not really sure what he's planning. It looks like he's trying to trap the opponent's lands, which makes sense. He's also setting up eventually maybe the follower to be double collecting from the left side. So his land progression looks kind of neat, but I think you should have placed one in the double inner wall on the left side, at least one of the prairies, so that you could set up a desert to then double collect. So it looks like he's just trying to cut off lands right now, and he's not really focused too much on collecting.
Now, Aurora seems like a massive draw here.
yeah, fantastic card to get off the top.
Yeah, now the only problem is if he uses Aurora on his protection creature, which he ideally would like to do, then he wouldn't be able to trade in. But we do see the Gabriel enchantment come down on the Death Wish School so that this fairy is able to trade in and still survive for the following turn. So I think we're going to see Aurora come down on the Gem Soak at this point.
Yeah, this is very good. Something that Kingdannz has to be very careful of, hopefully he's staying mindful of it, is the fact that there's now another lane open up. So if he doesn't put taunts or creatures in the way, we could just as easily see, a follower and a Calm's Prayer come from the opposite side.
Absolutely, and he was kind of mindful of that, placing this Aurora right here, so there is at least one more creature for Sepfire to get through before getting in.
It's a big part of playing against Rush is your land management. Whenever you're able to block them and limit to one side or one space, it's really strong.
Alright, so we see the Freedom Fighter come down here, and Sepfire's going to go ahead and get in for 2 points of damage here. So Kingdannz down to 1.
I'm a bit surprised he chose to pass up on one Feria there.
Yeah.
Not sure if it was a misclick or if he was expecting maybe to get a Calm's Prayer into a +1 or something. I don't know. It's really passed up on one Feria.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit strange, unless he's playing around Mystic Beast or something like that, but that seems unlikely to me.
I don't think you have to worry about Mystic Beast when you're this low in Feria, but sure.
Really big draw there for Kingdannz getting the Living Willow.
Absolutely massive. This allows him to trade into both the creatures on board and set up a taunt in front of his face. Wait, actually, no, sorry, the creature math doesn't quite work out there because if he moves the fairy up to attack the Freedom Fighter and Aurora trades for the Column's follower, he will not be able to do that. So it's very possible he won't move the Aurora in and just play the Living Willow instead.
Yeah, this is looking like if Sepfire draws a haste unit, he's going to win.
Well, he doesn't even need to at this point. If this Living Willow comes down and nothing else, well, he probably will play the Gabriel enchantment. But if nothing else comes down, Sepfire does have the Choking Sands in hand. That is a great answer to deal with this Living Willow. So this is the moment. Do you think he really needs to play this enchantment?
Oh, wow.
And he doesn't play it.
Oh, wow.
Oh my, no doubt he wasn't thinking about Choking Sands coming out of this deck.
It's not a common card in Yellow Rush. No control
my.
player usually thinks that they're running Choking, so I don't blame Kingdannz for not playing around it. That was a great inclusion by Sepfire to catch people off guard.
That was absolutely fantastic there. Kingdannz definitely didn't see that one coming. Wow, so well played by Sepfire. Great deck building by the look of it. He will go ahead and take this first round in this best of 3. That's absolutely crazy. So, all right, moving on to game 2 here. Cappuccino, what deck do you think Kingdannz is looking for to deal with this Yellow Rush?
I would assume that he has a yellow control or some type of control deck that he's going to switch to. But even mono blue for my testing is favored against Yellow Rush, so we could see yellow mono blue or we could see yellow control.
Scorch, do you agree?
Yeah, I think that would be good to counter it. I personally, I enjoy the burn against Yellow Rush just because I run things like Grim Guards and that, so you're able to have the taunt against the Rush and get the damage in. I find one of the biggest things when you're playing against a Rush deck is at some point you have to be able to get some pressure in on their orb, otherwise they have all the time in the world to even save up for a turn if they have to. Um, so something like that when you're able to deal damage from further away is really strong too.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you brought it up because Kingdannz often does play around with burn decks, so it's probably more likely that he brings out a burn deck.
And now one thing that is a little bit of concern with these burn decks is things like you said, Grimguard there. Now he has to keep Choking Sands in mind too, though.
Yep.
And so at this point he does know that Sepfire is running Choking Sands, which is a little bit of a benefit. But it's definitely going to be something he has to figure out how to deal with. Alright, but we're going to go ahead and get right into game 2 here. So once again, Sepfire up 1-0 against Kingdannz.
So something that's nice to know, though, is Kingdannz knows to play around at least one choking.
And how many do you think this deck is running? Do you think it is just the one, or is that the sort of thing that you include more than one of?
I think it's no more than 2, but it could be anywhere between 1 and 2, I think.
Right. Scorch, have you been running any Yellow Rushes like that? Do you run any Choking Sands?
No, I haven't played any style of Yellow Rush. But it is very interesting because it's something that you don't expect. So even if it is just a one-off, when you need to use it as the surprise factor, very cool card to include in there.
Alright, and we will see what Kingdannz has chosen here. It looks like it's going to be red control to be able to deal with this Yellow Rush.
Is it red control or is it red-yellow control? I'm curious.
That's actually a good question. Have you seen Kingdannz running any red-yellow control?
Yes, he's played it quite a bit on ladder. Not in the past week, but when the ladder first reset, I saw him playing it a bunch. So I'm curious to see if this is going to be red-yellow control.
It is somewhat possible here at this point. I know that you were probably the first person to run Defender of Homeland in your red-yellow control decks, and we do see that card come down here too as well. What do you think of Defender of the Homeland in this format right now? Do you think it's still a good card, or is it outclassed by some of the other neutral creatures?
I think because Doom Drakes and Shaitan Demons are less likely to see play because of Axe Grinders killing them off and uptrading, it means the things that were normally very bad for Defender of the Homeland aren't in the meta. So Defender just gets even better and better against Yellow Rush because the counters to it aren't being played. So I think it's really nice to include at least 1 or 2.
Absolutely, and Sepfire getting real aggressive here, hitting face as early as turn 2.
Yeah, really nice. He got the Explorer going second again. So he's able to extend that land right away.
Now Kingdann's going to have a lot of great answers here, actually. Do you think we're going to see the Flame Burst come down or the Ground Shaker? Scorch, what do you think?
Ground Shaker gives him more immediate onboard presence. Flame Burst I also like hanging on to as long as possible because it can now target Orb again. Decides to go with the Seifer's Wrath as well.
Wow, okay, so definitely valuing the HP on his Defender of the Homeland, just trying to ward off any other small haste creatures coming in. I think I really like that play, actually. He's not going to need that Favoria anytime soon by the look of it. His hand is a pretty cheap one as it is. So I think I really approve of that play, using that Cypher's Wrath instead of the HP on the Defender of the Homeland. Cappuccino,
Yep.
What do you think of this game right now? Like, do you think this is what Kingdannz needed? He looks like he's, stemming the original rush at least.
Yeah, it looks like he's actually playing a burn deck, or at least a burn variant of red control. I don't think this is going to be the typical red control we're used to, because of the inclusion of Cypher's Wrath and Flame Burst.
Alright, and so yeah, it looks
Another
like it could
Defender
just be
goes to
mono
2.
red burn at this point. Now I know that a lot of the yellow cards in red yellow burn got nerfed. Well, maybe not a lot, but at least Malevolent Sphere got nerfed, which was a pretty big part of it. Do you think that has anything to do with Kingdann's decision making if this is indeed a mono red deck?
I'm not really sure it would have too much of an impact because what you were really looking for from yellow anyway was like Deathwish Ghoul and Wind Soldiers, Soul Drain, and then the removal Choking in Last Nightmare, and that was just really nice to have, as well as vampires. Like, it was just all of the utility you get from yellow is just very high value cards.
All right.
I think even the 1 damage less to Malevolent Spirit doesn't make it unviable. Like it obviously is a bit of a nerf, but it's not anywhere near being that impactful to make it an auto exclude from your deck.
All right. It looks like he's spending Wind Soldier and Shaden Vampire to be able to deal with this Defender of the Homeland on the left side. So definitely spending a lot of resources, and like you said, Cappuccino, it looks like these are doing pretty well in the meta right now.
Kingdannz picks up a Bomb Slinger. I absolutely love this card.
Yeah, Bomb Slinger, a very powerful card. It gets you a lot of value, basically 8 damage for 5 Faeria at some point, since you can't really expect it to survive through too many trades. Have we been seeing a lot of this on ladder right now, Cappuccino, and higher levels, or is it... I know you used to not like Bomb Slinger because of the mountain cost.
Oh, I stopped hating it a long time ago. Bomb Slinger was included in my red control deck. Bomb Slinger's insane value.
I think even with the higher mountain cost, it's still good because you need to have more mountains, which gives you more options for spaces to place the Bomb Slinger to get the trades when you need them.
So it's kind of that rewarding thing where it needs more mountains, sure, but then it still gives you that benefit from having those mountains.
Yep.
Okay. Good point there. All right, and we see the Kingdannz just still holding on to the control of this game pretty firmly at this point. Even just this Defender of the Homeland going up and trading, Sepfire doesn't have a very good response to that. He'll have to use the Wind Soldier to be able to trade in.
Yeah, Kingdannz did a really nice job of, again, limiting the land placement from Sepfire. He's held him just to the left side there, and he didn't allow him to get interior position on the well. It's outside, so the haste coming down there isn't as impactful.
Yeah, we can see that there's only 2 deserts that are within range of the, or sorry, 2 lands at all that are within range of the orb, and they're not even deserts yet. So Sepfire is also going to have to take the time to convert them to deserts if he wants his haste creatures to hit face immediately. And that's not even accounting for the fact that he still needs to deal with this taunt before he'd be able to do so. So I really like Kingdanz's position in this game. If I were playing it, I'd definitely prefer to be on his side of the table right now.
Yeah, for sure. Normally in this matchup, you might see the yellow player start to just go towards the double inner walls and set up followers to be double collecting as a way of coming back and farming. From what we've seen, it doesn't look like he's running Outcast Cemetery, so I'm a little surprised he hasn't been going for that way of playing, but maybe he has a few more tricks up his sleeve, like the chokings.
Wow, so that was a really interesting turn from Sepfire. He used the Wind Soldier to go ahead and hit the face, while this Aradra Monk just traded off for a creature. That seems backwards compared to what you normally try to do. Do you think that he would have been better off trying to play the desert somewhere? Was there another way he could have played that turn?
Well, he needed the move distance from the Wind Soldier, right? The Aradra Monk wouldn't have made it.
Right, what I was thinking is if
Well,
he could have used the Wind Soldier to clear off the defender, he could have placed a desert on either of those 2 aggressive lands and attacked him from there. It's a little bit odd that he used the Aradra Monk to trade off there. I guess without looking into the players' minds themselves, we won't know for sure. All right, but a column
because
spreader.
that play would obviously does 1 less damage to the orb, but you have your creature actually survive. Or the Wind Soldier is going to die at the end of turn anyway.
So here's where Sepfire's hoping that things are starting to get scary for Kingdannz, but we can see in hand that Kingdannz has a great answer for this 8/8 already, with the Axe Grinder attacking in, and then either Bomb Slinger or Firebomb, whatever you like, coming down. And he's even able to draw the Ground Shaker to be able to deal with the Column's Follower.
Yeah, Kingdannz is in great shape here with the Bomb Slinger and Firebomb if he wants to.
Yep, so it is indeed going to be Bomb Slinger coming down, and the Ground Shaker will follow up. So he has a bunch of defensive creatures, he has aggressive land placement. All he needs at this point basically is to just draw a couple bigger threats to be able to finish off his opponent. Even this Zealous Crusader coming down, there's still a good answer in Kingdanz's hand for that in the Firebomb plus the Bomb Slinger attack.
He does get another follower in.
Okay.
Keeps hitting the face.
So that does change the math a little bit. This hand won't be quite as good at dealing with this, but it really will just take a couple more cards to deal with the Zealous Crusader, and I don't think Kingdannz will be too upset about that.
Yeah, Kingdannz gets to step on both of the deserts if he wants to, which is a really high impact position to be on the board.
And it looks like he's going to elect not to do that. He's only going to be stepping on the 1 and use this ground shaker to take better control of the interior of the board. Scorch, what do you think of that play? Do you think that this ground shaker is going to offer a lot of pressure around here, or what's Kingdannz hoping to accomplish with it?
Yeah, the bomb slinger blocking that desert there, I think achieves the same thing as blocking both deserts, because the 1 is limited in what you can do with it. Like you can't hit the orb from that one, but the soul drain comes out really nicely to clear it, and then you get the monk in.
Yep, like you were saying, the monk's coming down and just going straight at face here. And this Zealous Crusader in hand is actually becoming a pretty big threat pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You can see this Devouring Plant come into hand, though, which is exactly what Kingdannz was looking for. Just something to protect him from these haste creatures coming down. And really just, basically gain him a little bit of life in a way that red can't normally do.
Yeah, I think Devouring Plant's a really nice counter to a yellow rush. Obviously, we just saw the Soul Drain clear Bomb Slinger away, but any of the removal that yellow's going to be bringing in actually can't target structures.
Yep, but we do see the Zealous Crusader coming down right now, so Kingdannz has a bunch of cards in hand at this point. It looks like he might be a little bit shy on Favoria to be able to deal with this efficiently.
Well, he could double firebomb it. Or he could bomb slinger firebomb it straight as ground shaker.
Yeah, I think that's the best he's gonna do. He would probably like to play both firebombs and the bomb slinger, but just like I said, a little bit shy of that, unfortunately. So Kingdannz definitely being pretty far ahead, and it's really kind of just all thanks to this ground shaker. This ground shaker, at the beginning of the game, he would have liked to use it defensively and all this, but it's just been sitting next to the well. I don't think it's even moved since it was put there. But it's just been giving Kingdannz just this little bit of an edge that he's needed to fight through this deck.
Yeah, it's always nice when you can build up an economy against a rush deck and still be able to defend.
Absolutely, and I'm not sure how Kingdannz found the extra 6 Favoria to play that ground shaker and not get completely destroyed. I know I never can when I'm playing against these yellow decks.
It looks like Kingdannz is also going to win in the fatigue battle. So at this point, he can just ignore the opponent's orb completely and just try and defend it out. Especially since he's already dealt with 2 of the Zealous Crusaders, which is normally all that's run in Yellow Rush.
Something tells me he won't want this to come down to fatigue. Yellow can just pull just a little bit of damage out of nowhere, which is really not what he wants to happen at this point. The last thing you want to do is just lose at the very end or something like that, kind of like what happened last game. But it looks like Sepfire is kind of planning ahead and playing a little bit more defensively here. What do you think about this school placement, Cappuccino? Is that the sort of play you'd make as well, just to try to hold off your opponent?
I don't know if it really matters where he put it, considering those the ground shaker follow-up, but I think I would have tried to stay a little bit more aggressive still.
Yeah, anytime I feel like a rush deck starts playing defensively like this, it's almost as good as a concession, unless you're very close to fatigue or something like that, or something that's going to be able to finish off your opponent. It seems very odd, especially against strong players like Kingdannz, who won't just kind of start marching towards your face and let you get in damage.
Something that's cool is he can play the Wind Soldier north of the ground shaker and then charge all the way past the taunt and kill the 4-2, the bomb slinger, and collect. So there's a few fancy plays he can make.
Yeah. And it looks like he's going to try to take out this Devouring Plant instead. So what this allows him to do is, next turn he'll be able to attack it with a Freedom Fighter, or not next turn, but whenever he gets Favoria, he'll be able to attack it with a Freedom Fighter and take out the plant in 1 turn. So that means that if he has something like about 10 Favoria, he'll be able to get lethal, or not lethal, he'll be able to start attacking Kingdantz's face again. But it looks like he might not even have time to do that at this point. Kingdannz has got him down to 10 HP and still has that ground shaker right in his face.
Yeah, so the ground shaker being aggressive there is absolutely massive, because that Deathwalker probably comes down more aggressive if Kingdannz doesn't have some sort of pressure on his orb.
Alright, here we see the New Art Flame Spitter. Definitely an adorable little thing here, but it's interesting to me that
they keep pumping out just makes me so excited for like even Ground Shaker because it's still on a placeholder art.
Oh, absolutely. It's a little bit odd to me to see Flame Spitter in this sort of fairly heavy control deck. Is this the sort of thing we've been seeing a lot recently? Because I know we never used to, Cappuccino.
I think it's been included recently because of the uprising of blue. It was a way of dealing with fairies in a more manageable way, especially because it was buffed to be a 2-2, so it doesn't die as easily in the mirror match against ground shakers. it's a bit more sturdy. So a lot of red decks have been including it, including some burn decks too.
Okay. So
I
would
love
you,
it exactly for that reason.
Right.
You can pick off fairies, you can pick off something like a seedling, or just 1 damage whenever you need it.
All right, yeah, we can see these small little buffs. 1 health doesn't really seem like too much in the grand scheme of things, but when it survives a ground shaker, all of a sudden it definitely gets to be a lot more. All right, at this point, it looks like Sepfire playing to stay alive as best he can, playing this last nightmare down. But I'd imagine we'll see Kingdannz just probably play a Flame Spitter here, probably aggressively, which will pretty much threaten lethal a couple different ways now. Is there any card in Feria that Sepfire can draw here?
No, this is game.
Yeah.
The last time a commentator gave me that affirmative of an answer, it was when I think it was actually Kingdannz playing a blue-yellow deck against I think a mono-yellow rush, and he got a dream off of Tale of the Old Turtle. And I asked what the odds of him playing that dream were, and I got 0% from both of the casters I was casting with. But it did end up coming down later on in the game. But anyway, Kingdannz is able to take game 2 over Sepfire. So congratulations there, and we will be going to a game 3. Wow. So
Very nicely played.
Yep. This red deck is
Awesome.
one that I'm not too familiar with anymore. What sort of decks is Sepfire looking for to be able to counter this?
I would imagine red, yellow, burn, but because he's playing yellow rush already, he doesn't really have access to too many of yellow's tools. So either a just mono red burn with having the singers, the blood singers in it to slowly just ping damage to the opponent. Any type of burn effect is going to be useful because red struggles very much to go aggro. Or even a yellow control deck could be favored, depending on how he's got it structured.
All right.
It's difficult to run those because we saw things like the Soul Drain, we saw Last Nightmares in there. It's hard to put together something else with yellow in it that can heal back up from the burn damage that red is able to put out.
Is something like a heavy mono green, an option here?
I'm a bit worried because mono green used to be very good against it, but with the inclusion of bomb slingers and fire bombs and all of these high damage creatures, it's a bit harder. Granted, they're not running Lord of Terror anymore because of the nerf to Lord of Terror, so one of red's tools against green that made it almost an auto win for red is not going to be run, so maybe mono green is his best route if that's one of his decks.
All right, but we'll be able to find out very quickly here. We're going to jump back right into game and see what Sepfire does have in store to be able to deal with this red deck. And it looks like it's going to be blue. Okay, so wow, blue-red
So
actually.
it's a red-blue.
Ice Rock Behemoth, a card that I haven't seen too much personally. Have you guys been seeing any of that on the ladder?
Thormund has been streaming a blue-red Aurora's Dream Meteor deck, and he's actually been doing pretty well with it, so this could be Thormund's deck.
Blue-red with Meteor and Cartographers, is that the same deck?
Yep.
I believe so, yeah. He ran it in the Aurora Cup last weekend. It was very cool to see. I think we only got to see it in the 3rd place game, but it was a really cool deck to watch play from.
All right, so Kingdannz definitely, trying to get down the early creatures here, and he is going to go ahead and hit this Cartographer with the Flame Spitter. So we see definitely a massive amount of board control coming out from Sepfire early on, a lot of land placement. Is that going to affect Kingdannz in the long run? Because this looks like it's going to be difficult for him to be able to get an aggressive land and actually get some damage on his opponent at this point.
I think the only way red can really win this is by just winning the Feria in the early game and then going aggro before they have a chance of getting high impact like Ice Rock Behemoth by your face. Because as long as you can win Feria early, you should be in a good spot to win this.
Alright, it looks like Sepfire is probably thinking the same thing, so he's going to be playing this Cartographer to go back and forth on either side and try to keep that Feria number pretty equivalent early on.
Yeah, really nice to get something this early on a double harvesting spot.
Absolutely. I think this is probably the fastest I've ever seen it personally. He definitely had some pretty good hits with that Cartographer just to kind of open those up and make sure that those were options.
Yeah, when you're running Cartographers, you definitely want it early rather than late, so he's done well with his drawing.
And it looks like he's even going to suicide in the extra Cartographer just to save him from the land placement that he would otherwise need to play this Tale of the Old Turtle.
Wow.
think that's smart because you want to deny red from getting close to you. The only way you lose to red control typically is they get a aggressive mountain next to your orb and they just drop ground shakers to take your face with it. And by that point they have too much Feria and they just overpower your Ice Rock Behemoths. So him denying him aggressive lands this early is very strong.
And this Beirut coming into hand off the tail of the old turtle could be absolutely massive. Right now, if Sepfire is able to drop it on this square here, he'd be transforming both of Kingdanz's mountains on the following turn if Kingdannz isn't able to deal with it. Right now, his creatures are surrounding it, so I think he would be able to deal with it at this point. But Sepfire is definitely going to keep an eye out for that and see if there is some way he can take advantage of that later on.
Yeah, even just the 8-10 of stats on the Beru, if he's able to get it down early enough, takes away from the tools that Kingdannz is going to have to deal with the Ice Rock Behemoths eventually.
Well, you say early enough, but what is early enough at this point? It looks like Kingdannz has this pretty well in hand because, like Cappuccino was saying, he's pretty much got control of the Favoria at this point.
Yeah, he's in a really strong position here. Whether it's Garridan or just the Bomb Slinger to deal with this Ancient Herald, he's not going to be able to set up to establish any harvesting.
I think you play Garridan here because it forces your opponent to do a double land on his turn. Otherwise, he forfeits an aggressive mountain. So
Well,
I would like to see Garridan here.
Yeah, I was about to say that aggressive mountain is probably going to come down, but it turns out it's going to be the ground shaker instead, so he's going to elect to use the Cypher's Wrath and try to use Gargadon to get a little bit more value later on. And it looks like next turn, even, he's going to be able to have the Favoria to be able to play Gargadon if he wants to.
Yeah, this accomplishes almost the same thing. It's a little bit slower, but I guess it's a safer play because it lets you triple collect at the minimum.
Yeah, and that's definitely one thing we were talking about before, how Kingdannz loves to make these slow plays, these large to set up these large Favoria swing turns later on. So he's sticking true to his style at this point, and it looks like Sepfire is going to allow him this aggressive mountain in, so he does have this avenue of attack.
Really nice counterplay from Kingdannz.
Yeah, we can see Kingdannz really considering this ground shaker, and he does go ahead and play it. Looks like he's going to start trying to get aggressive here. This is a little bit weak to Ice Rock Behemoth, though, but luckily Sepfire can't quite play that this turn.
Oh, the Wave Crash Colossus comes down and picks up the Feria buff from the Ancient Herald. Really nice card to get that on.
Yeah, having a 5 Favoria 7/7 does seem like a pretty good deal to me. I mean, I'd probably play that in my blue-red deck.
Yeah, Beirut does look like the best option here. I was trying to look at all of his other options, whether Wave Crash might be more value this early on, but everything gets punished other than Beirut.
And the one nice thing about this Beirut coming down is that he would be able to convert this aggressive mountain that Kingdannz does have, depending on what spots he can put it in. Of course, that's assuming that Kingdannz doesn't just immediately deal with it, which he does seem pretty likely to. Ooh, and that Flame Spitter is actually a fantastic draw. That means he's going to be able to use the Bomb Slinger, one Ground Shaker, and the Flame Spitter ping to be able to deal with this Beirut. Oh.
He actually just goes very aggressive. He may just end up... Yeah, he's going to have lethal next turn.
Yeah, I really like this.
Yes, and never mind, Kingdannz definitely making this aggressive play. It's surprising me, but I guess that's not too hard to do sometimes. So he's going to trade off with this Beirut here. Can he even save himself from lethal, though? It looks like he's going to have to try to get lucky on the Unbound evolution, unless I'm missing something. Yep, Unbound coming down, and Beirut of his own. So Kingdannz is going to take round 1 of this tournament. Congratulations to Kingdannz, and definitely putting up a strong showing like we're used to seeing from him.